بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والضحى والليل إذا سجى ما ودعك ربك وما قلى وللآخرة خير لك من الأولى ولسوف يعطيك ربك فترضى ألم يجدك يتيما فآوى ووجدك ضالا فهدى ووجدك عائلا فأغنى فأما اليتيم فلا تقهر وأما السائل فلا تنهر وأما بنعمة ربك فحدث بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والضحى والليل إذا سجى ما ودعك ربك وما قلى وللآخرة خير لك من الأولى ولسوف يعطيك ربك فترضى ألم يجدك يتيما فآوى ووجدك ضالا فهدى ووجدك عائلا فأغنى فأما اليتيم فلا تقهر وأما السائل فلا تنهر وأما بنعمة ربك فحدث بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والضحى وَاللَّيْلِ إِذَا سَجَىٰ مَا وَدَّعَكَ رَبُّكَ وَمَا قَلَىٰ وَلَلْآخِرَةُ خَيْرٌ لَّكَ مِنَ الْأُولَىٰ وَلَسَوْفَ يُعْطِيكَ رَبُّكَ فَتَرْضَىٰ أَلَمْ يَجِدْكَ يَتِيمًا فَآوَىٰ وَوَجَدَكَ ضَالًّا فَهَدَىٰ وَوَجَدَكَ عَائِلًا فَأَغْنَىٰ فَأَمَّا الْيَتِيمَ فَلَا تَقْهَرْ وَأَمَّا السَّائِلَ فَلَا تَنْهَرْ وَأَمَّا بِنِعْمَةِ رَبِّكَ فَحَدِّثْ
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we are stripping back the layers on a concept that, quite frankly, feels completely alien to the ecosystem we currently inhabit.
It really does. It is,
Oh.
it's countercultural in the truest sense of the word.
Just look around. We are living in an economy of the clapback, the instant reaction. If you tweet something I don't like, blocked. You make a mistake at work, you're on thin ice. We have completely normalized this idea that power, real, tangible power, is demonstrated by the velocity of your retribution.
The speed.
Speed is the currency of strength.
Absolutely. It's the era of the hot take and, immediate adjudication for everything. We conflate reaction time with moral authority. If I don't hit you back now, right this second, the assumption is that I'm weak.
Right, or worse.
Or worse, that I agree with you, that I'm somehow complicit.
Exactly. But the stack of sources we're looking at today, specifically a very dense theological and linguistic text titled Al-Halim, the divine forbearance and its human reflection, it just flips that entire script on its head. We are unpacking the concept of Al-Halim.
Now, usually this gets translated into English as the forbearing or maybe the clement. But as I was reading through the etymological breakdown in the source, I just realized those English words are, well, they're anemic. They don't carry the tonnage of what's actually being described.
That is a perennial issue with translation, isn't it? Particularly with Semitic roots like this. Forbearance, in English, it often carries a connotation of passivity. It sounds like you're just grinning and bearing it because you lack the agency to do otherwise.
Yeah, it implies a distinct lack of options.
It does.
I'm forbearing because I'm stuck in traffic. There's nothing I can do.
Exactly. But what we are going to discover today is that Al-Halim represents the absolute antithesis of the passivity. It is the psychology of restraint at the highest operational level. It's about absolute power coupled with absolute delay.
Okay, see, that's it.
It is the capacity to crush, utilized specifically to nurture.
That's the hook for me, the capacity part. Because if I don't hit you back because I'm smaller than you, that's not forbearance. That's just a survival strategy. That's just self-preservation.
But if I'm a giant and I let you scream in my face, that is something else entirely. So let's do what we do. Let's build the foundation. Walk us into the linguistics here. What are we actually articulating when we say Al-Halim?
So to understand the architecture of this concept, we have to go right to the root. In Arabic, the root trilateral is HLM. The source material we're working from references the renowned lexicographer Al-Jahari, and he provides a very precise, almost clinical definition. He says Al-Hilm is Al-Lana.
Al-Ana. Okay, let's unpack that. I don't know that word.
Al-Lana translates to deliberateness. It is the utter lack of haste. It's a slowness, but it's a purposeful, calculated slowness. However, to really grasp the texture of the concept, you have to look at the antonym.
The opposite, right.
Yes, Ibn Faris, another linguistic giant cited in the text, states that hilm is the direct opposite of altaish.
Altaish, that sounds energetic, almost frantic.
It is, but in a chaotic, unmoored way.
Hmm.
Taish translates to recklessness, or, and I love this phrasing, lightness of the wit. It implies haste, frivolity, a lack of gravitas. You know when someone is described as hot-headed or trigger-happy?
Yeah, absolutely.
That is Taish. It implies that their emotional state is light. It just floats up to the surface instantly. A gust of wind blows and they move. They are essentially leaves in the wind of their own emotions.
That's a fantastic image. So if Taish is being light and easily blown around by the stimulus of the moment, Hilm is it gravity? Is that the right word?
Precisely. That is the perfect analogy. A person who is Halim possesses a heaviness of mind. They are grounded. They are anchored. The source quotes an old Arabic idiom that says, I forbore with him, so I am Halim. It implies a struggle, a weight.
So it's an action. It's something you do.
It's an action. It is the deliberate curbing of a reaction that desperately wants to jump out. It's the suppression of a natural kinetic force.
I love that image of weight. It suggests that anger is actually the path of least resistance. It takes no effort to just float away in a rage. It takes muscle, real spiritual muscle, to stay put.
It takes immense structural integrity. And when we move from the linguistic to the theological definition, how this applies to the divine, and we start referencing scholars like Al-Tabari and Al-Zajjaj, the defining characteristic becomes the absence of Allah-hala.
Which is haste.
Yes, specifically haste in punishment. This is the divine delay. But here is the nuance that Al-Khattabi adds, and I think this is crucial for you, the listener, to grasp, to avoid anthropomorphizing this too much.
Okay.
This delay is not because God is provoked, but holding it back through effort. The text really emphasizes that God is not triggered by the ignorance of the ignorant.
Stop there for a second. That word triggered, we use that constantly today. It's everywhere.
We do. It is the lexicon of our time, for sure.
And basically, if I'm triggered, it means an external stimulus has bypassed my logic and hit my emotions directly. If you trigger me, you effectively control me.
Correct. You are reacting to an external force. Your state becomes dependent on the other person's action. So, if God were to react instantly to every insult, in a philosophical sense, he would be reacting to an external stimulus.
He'd be reactive.
But Al-Halim acts according to his own timing. Ibn al-Athir notes that God has set a specific measure, a specific time for everything. He does not rush before that time. He is proactive, never reactive. He operates on an internal timeline that is completely immune to our provocations.
Wow. That changes the dynamic entirely. It's not that he's putting up with us while, gripping the steering wheel white-knuckled.
No.
It's that he is adhering to a schedule that we can't even see.
Precisely. And there is another layer here that I found profound in the notes from Al-Halimi. It concerns the active nature of this forbearance. It's not just the negative act of holding back the lightning bolt.
Right. Not doing something.
It's the positive act of what he does during the delay.
This is the part of the text that actually made me uncomfortable. It felt, excessively generous, almost illogical from a human standpoint.
It is a terrifying level of generosity. The text highlights that God continues to provide risk sustenance. He sees the sinner in the very act of sinning. And this is the part you have to really sit with. Perhaps the sinner is using the very health God gave them, the money God provided, the privacy God afforded to commit the sin against him.
That's the kicker. You're using his capital to fund the war against him.
A stark, but I think a very accurate formulation. And in that precise moment of treason, does God cut the breath? Does he stop the synaptic firing in their brain? No. He keeps the heart beating. He keeps the lungs inflating. He keeps the table spread with food.
Why? What's the purpose?
El-Sadi points out that this is an accidental or some kind of bureaucratic oversight. The purpose is yastabuhum, to give them ample opportunity to repent. It is a delay designed entirely for redemption.
It's like investing in your enemy in the hopes that he becomes your friend.
That is the essence of it. It is an investment strategy with an infinitely long horizon.
Now, to really understand the dimensionality of this, we need to look at how this name appears in the source text. It rarely shows up alone in the Quran, right? I noticed the material spent a lot of time on these divine pairings.
Yes, this is a fascinating area of theological study called Al-Ikran, basically the science of pairings. There are about 11 occurrences of Al-Halim in the Quran, and almost all of them are compound names. It's like Halim is the core concept, the noun, but the adjective paired with it changes the texture or the flavor of the forbearance. It modifies the application.
Let's break these down, because I think this is where the nuance really lives. The first one, and the source material suggests this is maybe the most intellectually demanding one, is the pairing of Al-Halim and Al-Hazim.
The all-knowing and the forbearing.
This occurs in Surah Al-Asab and An-Nisa for those following along. Why is this specific combination so significant? Why does knowledge matter so much to forbearance?
Well, let's look at Ibn al-Qayyim's insight here, which I think is just brilliant. Think about human nature. Think about the last time you forgave someone or, just let something slide. Often we forbear because we don't know the full extent of what they did.
Of course.
We give them the benefit of the doubt specifically because we lack the evidence.
Ignorance is bliss, I tell myself. Maybe they didn't mean it that way, or maybe they didn't know it would hurt me. I have to create a fiction to stay calm.
Exactly. We construct a narrative of innocence for them because it makes it easier for us to be patient. Our forbearance is rooted in a deficiency of data. If we knew what they were actually thinking, the malice, the calculation, the mockery behind our backs, we might snap.
We'd probably explode. I know I would.
Right. But God pairs Halim with Alim to assert that his forbearance exists despite perfect knowledge. He doesn't need to give you the benefit of the doubt. He knows the doubt doesn't exist. He knows the secret malice in the heart. He knows the sin wasn't an accident. He knows the premeditation.
That actually makes it harder to swallow, in a way. It's one thing to forgive a clumsy accident. It's incredibly hard to hold back when you know for a fact that someone looked you in the eye, calculated the damage, and chose to hurt you.
And that is why Ibn al-Qayyim says forbearance is perfected when it is coupled with knowledge. If you are patient because you are oblivious, that's not a virtue, that's just blindness. But if you see the rot clearly, microscopically, and still choose to cover it, that is Hilm. It validates that the forbearance is a pure act of will, not a result of ignorance.
Okay, that's deep. Let's move to the second one, Al-Ghafur and Al-Halim, the forgiving and the forbearing. This one seems like the most natural pair, like peanut butter and jelly.
It is the most intuitive pairing, for sure. But the sequence matters deeply. Ibn Asar, who was a great modern exegete, points out that this pairing often appears in contexts of slips or shortcomings in etiquette. The source brings up the Battle of Uhud.
Right, the archers, they abandoned their posts to get the spoils of war. They messed up big time.
They did. It was a massive, catastrophic strategic error, and it was caused by a momentary desire for worldly gain. But notice the process described in the text. Before you can have Ghafur, which is the erasing of the sin, you must have Hilm. Why?
Because, well, if you punish them immediately, there's nothing left to forgive. Is that it?
That's exactly it. Hilm is the container that holds the situation stable. Hilm prevents the immediate punishment. That delay creates the space, the temporal opening, for Ghafur to enter and do its work. So you could say Hilm is the bridge you cross to get to forgiveness.
I like that.
If you burn that bridge with immediate anger, you never reach the destination of forgiveness.
So Hilm buys you the time to be forgiven. It's like the waiting room for mercy.
Beautifully put. Without the delay of Hilm, the erasure of Ghafur is impossible because the sinner would already be destroyed. There'd be nothing left to erase.
Okay, the third one hit me differently. It felt almost like a power move. Al-Ghani and Al-Halim. The rich, or maybe self-sufficient, is better. And the forbearing?
Yes. This is found in Surah Al-Baqarah. This one addresses the motivation for patience. Let's bring it down to earth for a moment. In human relationships, why do you put up with a bad boss?
Because I need the paycheck. I have a mortgage. Simple as that.
Exactly. Why do you tolerate a difficult landlord or a rich relative who is consistently rude?
Because I need the apartment. Or I'm hoping for an inheritance. It's transactional.
Right. Human patience is heavily transactional. We forbear because we are needy. We fear the consequences of reacting, or we rely on the very person we are angry with. Our patience is often a strategy for survival. We digest the insult because we need the resource they provide.
But God is Al-Ghani.
He is the self-sufficient. He needs absolutely nothing. He doesn't need the sinner's worship. He doesn't need their validation. He doesn't need their service. He is not afraid of them in any way. So when he forbears, it is not out of necessity. It is not a negotiation. It is not, I'll put up with you so you'll keep worshiping me.
Wow, that changes the power dynamic completely. It's not, I'm putting up with you because I have to. It's, I'm putting up with you because I am choosing to be kind.
It frames Hilm as an act of pure, unadulterated grace. It strips away any possible hidden agenda. He forbears because he is Halim, not because he is needy, It was generosity from a position of absolute, unassailable strength.
That's profound. It removes any leverage we think we have. We aren't negotiating with God.
Never. There's no negotiation.
And the final major pairing mentioned in the source is Al-Azim and Al-Halim, the great and the forbearing.
This is found in the famous Dua al-Karb, the prophetic supplication of distress. This pairing addresses the corruption of power. In human history, greatness, kings, emperors, dictators, it usually correlates with tyranny or a hair-trigger temper.
Off with his head, the classic line.
Exactly. If you insult a king, you die. High status usually means low tolerance for disrespect. If you are great, you are expected, even required, to crush anyone who challenges that greatness.
It's almost like if you don't crush them, people might start to question if you're really that great in the first place.
Precisely. It's insecurity masquerading as power. But here, God's azama, his greatness, is adorned and beautified by his hilm. It tells us that true greatness isn't about how terrifying you are. It's about how much you can contain. It frames gentleness not as a weakness, but as the crown jewel of power. Only the truly great can afford to be truly forbearing.
So we have the definitions, we have the pairings, we have the theory. But I want to shift gears. Let's look at the manifestations, as the source calls them, because the text gets pretty graphic about just how much God puts up with. It's not just abstract theology. It's looking at the world right now, today.
It is. The scope is just staggering. The text invites us to perform a kind of visual audit of the world. God sees the atheist who denies his existence. He sees the polytheist who worships created things. He sees the criminal actively fighting his religion. These aren't just people ignoring him. Some are actively campaigning against him. And yet, the sun rises on them. Their crops grow. Their children smile at them. They enjoy the taste of cold water on a hot day. They sleep soundly through the night.
There's a specific concept mentioned here called sith, or covering. I found this fascinating because it touches on privacy and dignity.
Yes, sit. The idea is that God dislikes the exposure of sin. There is a famous hadith referenced in the text. All of my ummah is excused except the mujahideen.
The mujahideen. Now, that isn't the migrants, right? That's a different word.
Completely different root, yeah. Here it refers to those who publicize their sins, those who brag about them.
Okay, so explain the mechanism here. What does this covering look like?
The text describes a person who commits a sin at night, maybe in their home, behind a locked door, in secret. God conceals it. He throws a veil over it. He doesn't let the neighbors know. He doesn't put a mark on their forehead the next morning. He gives the person a private, dignified chance to repent.
It's a protection of reputation.
It is. But the mujahir is the one who wakes up and tears that veil down himself. He goes to his friends and says, "You won't believe what I did last night." The text suggests that hilm involves this active covering, giving the sinner a dignity they don't deserve, in the hope that they will use that privacy to return to him.
It's like God is more protective of your dignity than you are.
That's a very powerful way to put it. And then on a macro scale, the source cites Surah Fatir, stating that God holds the heavens and earth from vanishing or collapsing due to the sins of humanity.
The cosmic stability.
Yes. The implication is that sin has a metaphysical weight. It's a kind of destructive entropy. It's a pressure that should, by all rights, collapse the system. And God's hilm is the force holding the entire universe together against that destructive moral pressure. The laws of physics continue to operate despite the moral chaos we create.
There was one example in the text that felt incredibly personal, almost visceral, the claim of a son.
Yes. This refers to the theological assertion that God has a child. The Quran describes this as a claim so monstrous that it almost splits the heavens. It's described as a cosmic insult to the very nature of divinity.
It's an attack on his core identity.
It is. And the text points out the audacity. Humans make this claim, attributing a human biological process to the Creator, and yet, as a famous hadith narrates, no one is more patient over injury he hears than God. They insult him, and he provides for them. He gives them health while they are speaking the insult.
It's baffling. And then we have the story of the people of the ditch, or Ashab al-Uktud. This is a hairy story. I remember reading this in the source material and thinking, okay, surely this is where the line is drawn.
It is one of the most brutal narratives in Scripture. These were believers, men, women, children, thrown into trenches filled with fire by a tyrant king. They were burned alive simply for believing.
It's a massacre.
The Holocaust. It is. But the text highlights Surah Al-Buruj. After mentioning this heinous, horrific act burning people alive, God says, "Those who persecuted the believing men and women and then did not repent."
And then did not repent. That phrase.
That is the key phrase. Al-Hasan al-Basri, the famous early scholar, commented on this line with total astonishment. He said, and I'm paraphrasing here, "Look at this generosity. They killed his allies, they burned his saints, and he invites them to forgiveness."
It's almost difficult to comprehend. The standard of mercy is so high, it feels unjust to our human sensibilities. We want revenge for those victims. We want the earth to open up and swallow the persecutors instantly.
And that brings us to the most dangerous part of this discussion, the danger of misinterpretation. Because you are right. If we stop the analysis right here, we just say God is infinitely forbearing, what conclusion does the human mind immediately jump to?
That sin has no consequence, that I can do whatever I want and God will just keep being Halim.
Exactly. This is the trap. The text calls it the danger of al-imla.
Al-Imla, break that down for us.
Al-imla means respite. Or maybe a better translation is extending the rope. The question you just raised is vital. Does infinite forbearance mean zero consequences? The answer from our sources is absolutely not. Al-Halim implies a delay, not an abandonment of justice.
There's a scary hadith quoted here that gave me chills reading it. God gives respite to the oppressor until, when he seizes him, he does not let him escape.
It creates a tension, doesn't it? The delay is long, the rope is long, but the seizure is sudden and total. Think of a rubber band stretching. The further you pull it back, the longer the forbearance, the harder and faster the snap when it finally releases. The potential energy builds up over time.
The source walked us through some historical precedents of what they called exhausted patience.
Yes. Take Noah's people, for example.
950 years, that's a lot of forbearance, that's a lot of rope.
Nearly a millennium of patience. Warnings, invitations, delays, generations of chances. But when the forbearance ended, the flood was absolute. There was no second chance. The mountain didn't save the sun. The delay was over.
Or look at Pharaoh. He wasn't just a tyrant, he claimed divinity. He said, "I am your Lord Most High."
And God didn't strike him down right then and there. This is the mystery of him. God sent Moses to him, and he instructed Moses to speak to him with gentle speech. Think about that. The man claims to be God, enslaves thousands, kills babies, and God's first command is gentle speech.
That is the epitome of Hilm in action.
But when the arrogance persisted, when the time was up, the drowning was instantaneous. The Red Sea didn't hesitate.
So the lesson is, do not mistake the silence of God for the approval of God.
Exactly. And do not mistake delay for weakness or apathy. The listener has to balance raja, hope in God's forbearance, with kaf, fear of the seizure of the mighty. If you only have hope, you become heedless. If you only have fear, you despair. Hilm operates in that middle tension.
Speaking of heedlessness, let's talk about the pathology. The text identifies a spiritual disease called ghafla. This seems to be the direct side effect of misunderstanding Hilm.
Yes, ghafla. It translates to heedlessness, negligence, or a kind of spiritual stupor. The source defines it as the state where the delay in punishment causes the human to forget God entirely. Because the lightning bolt didn't hit me yesterday, I assume it won't hit me tomorrow, and eventually I start to assume there's no lightning bolts at all.
It's the boiling frog syndrome. You get comfortable in your sin because nothing bad is happening, so you just stay put.
And the consequences described are severe. The text references Ibn Taymiyyah, who identifies ghafla as the root of all evil alongside following one's desires. It leads to the sealing of the heart, becoming, as the text says, like cattle.
That's a harsh description. Like cattle.
It implies a life reduced to biology, just eating, sleeping, working, and reacting. No higher spiritual awareness, no looking up. And eventually this leads to the ultimate regret at the moment of death, the cry of, "Woe to us, we were in heedlessness of this."
What causes this? The text gives a pretty clear diagnosis.
It lists several vectors for this spiritual illness. Bad company is a big one. If everyone around you is heedless, it becomes your normal. Abandoning congregational prayer is another. But the one that really struck me was long hopes, or tul al-amal.
Tul al-amal, what does that mean exactly?
It's the deep-seated assumption that you have endless time. I'll repent when I'm 60. I'll fix this relationship next year. I'll start praying seriously after I retire. It is a fundamental denial of mortality. It's living as if death is a rumor that applies to other people.
And of course, the text mentions at Takafer.
The obsession with accumulation. Piling up more and more. We are so busy counting our money, our likes, our followers, our assets, that we completely forget the owner of time itself. We are distracted by the toys in the waiting room.
So what's the prescription? How do we cure ghafla?
The source offers a clear regimen. First, knowledge. You cannot respect what you do not know. Learning these names, like Al-Halim, wakes you up. It makes you realize that the silence isn't empty. It's pregnant with meaning and purpose.
Okay, what's second?
Quranic recitation. It's described specifically as a cure for what is in the chests. It's like a polish for the heart. It scrapes away the rust of heedlessness that builds up over time.
And the third one is the heavy hitter, the remembrance of death.
Visiting graves. It sounds morbid to the modern ear, I know. We hide death in our culture. We sanitize it and pretend it doesn't exist. But the text argues that standing before a grave is the ultimate reality check. It shatters the illusion of tu alamal. It screams, this person thought they had time too.
And finally, the prophet used to pray specifically for refuge from this state.
Yes. O Allah, I seek refuge in you from incapacity, laziness, and ghafla. If the prophet, the most aware human being to ever live, felt he needed to ask for protection from heedlessness, we certainly do.
Okay, so we've covered the divine nature, the warnings, the diseases. Now let's land the plane on the human level. The text says we are mandated to emulate this attribute.
Right. The theological principle is adorn yourselves with the character of God. If God is Halim, then the believer must strive to be Halim.
But here's my question, and I think a lot of listeners might feel this way. Is this nature or is it nurture? Because some people are just born chill. I have friends who never seem to get mad. Their blood pressure is permanently 110/70. I am not one of those people. Can I actually learn this, or am I just doomed to be Taish?
The source is very encouraging here. It says, yes, you can learn it. It quotes the prophet saying to a companion named Ashaj of Abdul Qais, you possess two qualities God loves, Hilm and Ana. And in that specific case, the prophet clarified that Ashaj was born with them. It was his natural disposition.
Okay, so good for Ashaj. What about the rest of us?
For the rest of us, there is another hadith that is incredibly hopeful. Knowledge comes by learning, and forbearance comes by practicing forbearance. The Halim.
The Halim. That form of the word in Arabic, it usually implies effort, right? Like straining to be something.
Exactly. It means faking it till you make it, but with sincerity and effort. It means forcing yourself to act forbearing until it becomes your second nature. It validates the struggle. If you are boiling inside, if every fiber of your being wants to scream, but you choose to clamp your mouth shut, you are practicing tahalim, and that struggle itself is rewarded.
The text actually gives what I called an anger management protocol. I was surprised by how practical this was. It reads like a modern self-help book, but from, the 7th century.
It's remarkably akin to modern cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT. The first step is what they'd call cognitive reframing. When you are angry at someone, the text advises you to immediately remember God's forbearance toward you.
That's the perspective shift.
Right. It completely puts your anger in perspective. You think to yourself, God forgave me for sins much worse than what this guy just did to me. If I want God's Hilm, I need to show Hilm.
Then there's what I'm calling the silly factor.
Yes. The text advises realizing that acting on anger usually just makes one look foolish. Think about it. When you see someone losing it in public, screaming at a waiter, red-faced, veins popping on their neck, they look powerful.
No, they look like a toddler having a tantrum. They look weak and out of control.
Exactly. When you lose your temper, you lose your dignity. You hand over your dignity to the person who provoked you. You let them control you.
And the physical interventions, these are fascinating.
So we have the spiritual saying, Autubillah, I seek refuge in God from the accursed devil. But then you have the physiological. First, silence. If one of you is angry, let him be silent.
Because anger wants to speak. It has a script ready.
Anger is a scriptwriter, absolutely. It wants to draft the perfect insult. It wants to wound. Silence suffocates the fire. It denies the fire the oxygen it needs to burn.
And the posture change. That one's interesting.
Yes. If standing, sit. If sitting, lie down. This is physiologically grounding. It literally lowers your center of gravity and can lower your heart rate.
Yeah.
But also practically, it makes it physically harder to attack someone. You can't lunge at someone effectively if you're lying on the floor. It's a forced de-escalation of the body.
And hydrotherapy.
Wudu, or ablution. The text says anger is a fire from the devil, and fire is extinguished by water, splashing cold water on the face, the hands, the feet.
That's the mammalian dive reflex, right? I think I read about this.
Exactly. Cold water on the face triggers the vagus nerve, it slows the heart rate, and it calms the entire nervous system. So we have a 1,300-year-old prescription that aligns perfectly with modern physiology. It's amazing.
The ultimate goal here is the high road. The text quotes the verse about repelling evil with good.
Repel evil with that which is better, and the result promised is incredible. The one between whom and you there was enmity becomes as if he were a wali hamim, a warm, devoted friend. It can actually transform the relationship.
It's alchemy, turning enemies into friends using patience as the catalyst.
And the rewards mentioned for this are just massive. The text mentions the story of Abu Bakr. He was sitting with the Prophet, and a man was insulting Abu Bakr over and over. Abu Bakr stayed silent. The Prophet just smiled. Then the man kept going, and eventually Abu Bakr said something back, just a little defense of himself, and the Prophet stood up and walked away.
Why? Why would he do that?
Abu Bakr was confused and asked him, "O Messenger of God, you stayed while he insulted me, but you left when I spoke." The Prophet said, "An angel was replying on your behalf. But when you spoke, the devil arrived, and I do not sit with the devil."
Wow. So when you are silent, you have celestial defense. When you speak, you're on your own.
Precisely. And for those who suppress rage while able to act again, capability is always the key. The text mentions the reward of the choice of Al-Halim, companions of paradise. It signifies that because you controlled your passion in this world, you were given the ultimate satisfaction and choice in the next.
I want to close out with the anecdotes, the prophetic models, because seeing this in action makes it real. It moves it from a concept in a book to a biography. We have Prophet Ibrahim.
He is described in the Quran as Al-Halim, imploring and forbearing. And the context is his father. His father wasn't just a non-believer, he was an idol manufacturer. He literally threatened to stone Ibrahim to death.
That's a toxic household.
To say the very least. Yet, Ibrahim's response was always respectful. "Oh, my father." He prayed for forgiveness for him. He never returned the abuse. He never slammed the door. He maintained the bridge of communication, even as his father tried to burn it down.
And then Prophet Muhammad, there are 3 stories here, but the Bedouin one, that one is cinematic. It's unbelievable.
It is a classic. A rough Bedouin comes up to the Prophet. Now, you have to remember, the Prophet is the head of state at this point. He has armies. He has authority. The Prophet is wearing a Najrani cloak with a thick, coarse hem. The Bedouin grabs the cloak from behind and yanks it.
This isn't a gentle tap on the shoulder.
No. The text says he pulled it so hard that it left a red bruise on the Prophet's neck. It was a violent act.
That's assault. In any court of law, that's assault.
It is. And then the man yells, "Muhammad, give me some of God's money that you have." He doesn't even call him messenger of God. He calls him by his first name. It's physical pain plus rudeness plus entitlement.
The trifecta of provocation. Pain, disrespect, and demand all at once.
Most kings, most leaders would have had the man executed on the spot, or at the very least thrown in a dungeon for a long time. The Prophet turned, looked at him, and smiled.
He smiled.
Some narrations say he laughed, and then he ordered that the man be given a gift from the treasury.
He laughed. That is the ultimate hilm. It's a complete refusal to let the other person's negativity penetrate your internal state. It's total emotional sovereignty.
It is. He refused to be defined by the man's rudeness.
Yeah.
He remained defined by his own generosity.
Then there is the Taif incident. This is the heavy one. This is really tough.
This is perhaps the darkest day in the Surah, his biography. He went to the city of Taif to preach. They didn't just reject him. They sent their children and their slaves to line the streets and stone him. He was bleeding so much his shoes were filled with his own blood. He was humiliated, wounded, and chased out of the city.
And this is where the test comes.
The angel of the mountains appears. He says, "God has heard what your people said to you. If you wish, I will crush them between the 2 mountains." Al-Shaban.
This is the moment. The power is there. The justification is there. This is divine retribution on a silver platter.
And he refuses. He says, "No, I hope that God will bring forth from their descendants those who worship him alone."
He looked past the current violence to a potential future redemption. That is the long game of Al-Halim. He saw the babies that weren't even born yet, who might one day be believers.
And history bears witness. Taif eventually became a stronghold of Islam. His patience bore fruit. If he had crushed them, that future would have died with them.
And finally, the Aisha incident. This one shows that Hilm applies even to enemies in, just daily social interactions.
Yes. A group of Jewish citizens in Medina greeted him saying, "Assalamu alaikum," which sounds like the real greeting but means "death be upon you" instead of "Assalamu alaikum," peace be upon you.
Oh.
It was a clever, nasty play on words.
Very sneaky.
Aisha, his wife, was sharp. She heard it, she fired back immediately, and upon you correspond death and the curse.
I mean, she was defending him. I think I'd have done the same thing.
She's being loyal. But the Prophet corrected her. He said, "Gently, Aisha. Gentleness is not placed in a thing, but that it beautifies it. And it is not removed from a thing, but that it disfigures it."
Gentleness is not placed in a thing, but that it beautifies it. That's a beautiful line.
He told her that he had simply replied, "And upon you." That's it. He refused to escalate. He neutralized the insult without adopting the insult's toxicity. He didn't let their poison make him poisonous.
That's the key, isn't it? Don't let the world change you. So let's bring it home. We've unpacked the word, we've seen the divine scope, we've been warned about the trap of delay, and we've been given the tools to practice it. What does this all mean for the listener right now, today?
I think the synthesis is this. Al-Halim teaches us that true power is perfected and controlled by mercy and wisdom. It is a call to stop mistaking silence for weakness and to stop mistaking delay for approval. But more importantly, I think it changes our relationship with time itself.
How so?
We are living in a period of divine respite. The fact that we are breathing right now, despite our mistakes, despite our ghafla, is a direct manifestation of God's Hilm. We are in the delay period. The question is, what are we doing with it?
That leads perfectly to our final provocative thought. The source material mentions the day of mutual disillusion, or Yom et Tekabun.
Yes, it's this idea that on Judgment Day, people will feel cheated, not by God, but by themselves. They will realize they had time, they had the delay, they had the Hilm, and they just wasted it. They gambled against the owner of time, assuming the delay would last forever. They thought the open door would never close.
If God is holding back the consequences right now to give you a chance, are you using that chance? That's the haunting question.
It is.
And I want to challenge everyone listening. Identify one relationship in your life where you can practice Tahalim, that forced, deliberate forbearance today, not next week, today. Maybe it's your spouse, your child, that annoying coworker. Be the one who absorbs the shock and doesn't pass it on.
Be the heavy mind in a world of light wits.
I love that. Thanks for diving in with us. We'll see you in the next one.